我不用担心这些事情的，可是别人就是说，哦，你自己做一些另外那一个来个哦，我train，来这边 train 好吧。他收公车，然后这个火车就说好，这个火车的收费是大概多少钱？别人的都是5万块钱人民币，这个就是你的，一旦去见上帝了或者回天，不管情况之下，你这个5万块钱的这个 train set 火车你是预备留给谁呢？你如果不做任何的规划，可能留给的人并不是你想要给的人，对不对？所以这件事情我们通常不觉得有留下，没有觉得要做这些规划，事实上有很多意义。我们在 Facebook 在脸书上面跟那个Twitter 就说这些media 哈都可以直接联系。I think all the information is in template. Whatever you did. 你们新来的已经拿到您看资料，对不对？所有的资料都在上面，可以自己看一看。如果看不太懂的话，可以要不就问我，或者问自己家里的小孩子，懂英文的。
So can we do the translation after we do our tour?
So we won't.
Yeah, so let's do the translation, or you can sit next to you. So then
next to you, I'm sitting here.
Okay. Okay. Neil, could you go ahead and start the and welcome everybody?
I sure can.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's presentation of Coffee and Conversation. We're here at the A-Leaf Neighborhood Centers to provide information to the community in regards to transfer on deaf deed and building legacy, as hosted in today's Coffee and Conversation by the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods. And just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a background about A Month of Service. A Month of Service is a collaboration of 8 different organizations, including Neighborhood Recovery, Community Development, the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, the Earl Carl Institute for Legal and Social Policy, as well as Lone Star Legal Aid, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, Harris Central Appraisal District, Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office, and the Houston Bar Association. And together we all make up A Month of Service. And basically A Month of Service is the collaboration of all 8 of those organizations. We come together, go out into the community and provide information that you necessarily don't know where to go to get, or don't have access to, or really just have questions about, but don't know where to even begin to even start the process. So today we're here to talk about transfer on deaf deed, which is an alternative to having a will for your real property. And Ms. Lisa's going to get into all of those details to tell you all about that. If you guys want more information about wills or estate plan, or inheriting property, clearing title for inherited property that you have to help with protecting that generational wealth. We do have those other workshops that we do also online via Zoom that are available that I can actually email out to you guys, or that you can attend every month that we have. The first Tuesday of every month, there's a live session that we also record live and go on Facebook and send out the presentation to everybody that registered. So we want to thank y'all for attending this morning and coming out to get this information, to get your questions addressed, because we want to get as much information out to the community as we possibly can. In addition to that, we want to remind everybody the information that you get here today, if you could share it with somebody else that may not be here, that may also find the information to be beneficial when it comes to protecting your generational wealth and preserving that legacy. So thank you guys for joining us today. We'll have a little bit more information at the end, and we will be here to answer your question. So please feel free to raise your hand after she's done with the presentation to ask questions. If you're joining us live on Facebook or via Zoom, then please feel free to type your question into the comment section or in the chat. And I will definitely make sure that Ms. Lisa gets the questions addressed for you as well. So thank you guys very much. And we will go ahead and go on into our presentation. So Ms. Myra.
Thank you. And on behalf of Mayor Sylvester Turner and Director Takasha Francis, we want to welcome you to the Month of Service Coffee and Conversation with the Department of Neighborhoods. We are scheduling a transfer on death deed clinic and a resource fair for Legacy Building this Saturday. So I'm going to stay afterwards for those of you that would like to get a free assistance with your notary, or to be able to get your transfer on death deed notarized. We will schedule you for this Saturday. So today we're training you and educating you on what is a transfer on death deed and how do you fill out the transfer on death deed correctly. Then this Saturday, we will have a transfer, it's called Legacy Building Now and Beyond, and a transfer on death deed clinic, as well as a resource fair. So if any of you are interested in being scheduled for assistance with your transfer on death deed, we will notarize each one of your transfer on death deeds for free. And the next week, hopefully, you will take it and file it with Harris County Clerk's Office. Please, one of the things that we want to make sure that when you get your transfer on death deed notarized, that you don't just put it in your drawer and hide it, because it will not be any good at all unless you file it. And let me give you a great example. Just maybe about a couple of weeks ago, we had a friend of ours, and I call each one of you my friends, because once I meet you and we've made eye contact, you will forever be my friend, because each one of y'all are taking time out of your busy schedules to spend time with us. And that, with me, is so amazing, and we're very grateful. So maybe about 4 weeks ago, we had a friend of ours that passed. And her daughter called me and says, hey, remember that transfer on death deed my mother filed? And I said, oh, yeah. And it was notarized. Do you know where she put it? Where she was supposed to file it? She said, well, we have a will, but I said, so let's look on the internet in the county clerk's office and see if we can find the filing of the transfer on death deed. Because if you're looking for any documents on property or anything that's going on in your area, you can find, or in your home, you can find it at the county clerk's office, because the county clerk's office is a holder. They hold all this information about your property, but they don't keep the file. They scan it and then they save it in their site. So I looked in the county clerk's office. There was not a transfer on death deed filed. So now our friend passed. So now the transfer on death deed that she filed and that she got notarized is no longer valid. Now, the will that she had, the last will that they found, had her ex-husband, that she was leaving her ex-husband the property. She had never changed it, even after she got divorced. So now the property that her daughter had been living with her, because the only will they had was the one that she left with her ex-husband's name, goes to her ex-husband. So now she has to get an attorney and go through that process of probate. Because if she would just file that transfer on death deed, then she would, her daughter, because the only thing she owned was the property. And she had already done a transfer on death deed with the vehicle. Now that she filed, she was more concerned about the vehicle and not the house. So she filed a transfer on death deed for her vehicle with the Texas Department of Transportation, but did not file the transfer on death deed for her property. So now she has to go through her daughter has to go through all this process of probate. And if her mother would have taken the time, we understand going to the county clerk's office takes time, and you have to get out of your car and walk or drive downtown. But please, when it comes to your legacy, the most important thing is to be able to do what you need to do to the last part, and that's filing your transfer on death deed. And here we are, we're honored and very grateful for TSU Earl Call Institute to be a wonderful partner with the month of service. And we're very grateful for Miss Lisa Nelson. She's a staff attorney with the TSU Earl Call Institute. And Miss Lisa Nelson has been a partner with Houston Volunteer Lawyers, with Houston Bar Association. She was with Elder Law, and she can explain a little bit more of all the things that she has been working with and has done. But everyone, please give her a standing ovation or a clap for Miss Lisa Nelson.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'm honored to be here.
You come up here. Yes.
I'm not used to doing this in person.
Back here.
So I'm here to talk about transfer on death deeds. It's a critical part of your estate planning. You shouldn't use it.
I'm sorry. You'll each have a transfer on death deed in your box.
Okay, you each have a copy in your packet of how to fill it out. I still recommend having a will because there are times when there's something that you forgot to include with the beneficiary. But this is a great way to save your family a lot of money and time. So we call the transfer on death deed in our office the difference between $34 and $3,500. You do have to pay a small filing fee when you file your transfer on death deed with the county, but it's rarely more than $40. If your family has to go through the probate process and probate a will, it could be $3,500 to $5,000. So what a transfer on death, please. What a transfer on death deed is it's a Texas law that allows you to record a deed naming who you want to inherit your home after you pass away. This is not giving the house away at home. You maintain full ownership rights for the rest of your life. You can revoke this deed if you change your mind and want to leave it to somebody else. The most critical thing about it is it has to be filled out correctly. And after these slides, I'll show you what the deed looks like. You have to have the full legal description of your property. You find that on the deed to your house. If you can't find the deed to your house, you can call the Harris County Clerk's Office and the Real Properties Division, and they can help you locate that deed.
They can also go to online and click Harris County Property Search and search by their name or their address. It will show them.
That is correct. You can also search online for Harris County Property Search. Thank you. And it is critical that you file it at the county clerk's office before you pass away. If you do not file it before you die, it is invalid. Another thing about the transfer on death deed is it trumps a will. So in the situation that Myra brought up earlier, if her friend had recorded the transfer on death deed, her daughter would have automatically received that house. She wouldn't have had to go through probate court. Another great thing about the transfer on death deed is it prevents Medicaid estate recovery. A lot of people use Medicaid to pay for nursing homes. If you use Medicaid to pay for your nursing home services, once you pass away, Medicaid can seek reimbursement. How they seek reimbursement is through the probate court. So Medicaid would go to the probate court and force you to sell your family's house in order to get the money that they spent on your behalf. Going through the transfer on death deed process, it doesn't go through the probate court, and Medicaid can't seek reimbursement. This is perfectly legal. I am not telling you anything shady. It's just the way the law is written. Next slide, please. So you're going to see in your packet the transfer on death deed instructions. What you need to get before you fill out that deed is you need to know the full name and address of each homeowner and each beneficiary as shown on their Texas driver license, Texas ID. You'll need to know the mailing addresses if that's different, and then the full legal description of the property. Next.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if you own this house, but you didn't live in that house, when it says that you have to have the full name and mailing address, are you given the mailing address where you receive the mail, or are you given the address that's on the deed?
Great question, thank you. If anybody didn't hear, she said, if you own some property where you do not live, do you put the mailing address of that property or the mailing address where you get your mail? You put the mailing address where you get your mail. Yes, sir. Whoever.
Your name is Jefferson. You failed on the birth certificate.
You need it as it would be.
The name is spelled wrong on the birth certificate. You spell your name right on your driver's license.
I would, to be honest, you should get a new birth certificate, but go with the name that's on your driver's license.
When I look at my deed, my name is listed as first name and last name, but on my driver's license it lists first name, middle name, and last name. So which do I go by the name on my deed, or do I go by the name on my driver's license?
I would go by the name on your driver's license.
But the deed doesn't have the middle name.
Oh, okay. So you know,
The deed doesn't have my first name and last name.
what's the name on the deed to make it clear?
Okay, this one is clear because I know a lot of Vietnamese with middle names, and on the deed it doesn't show the middle name.
Thank you. Yeah, if you only have your first name and last name on the deed and not your middle name, just have your first name and last name on the transfer and death deed. You want the transfer and death deed to match your original deed. You can do it that way then.
I think we have this right. If we want to leave all overseas, originally were not when they have some relatives fully overseas, then it's the name of the people who want to do the property and the address.
I don't think so. This is, she asked if you're leaving your property to someone who lives overseas, do you want to list their name or their name and their address? I would want to look into this because I haven't run into this situation before and I'm not sure about people overseas inheriting, but I think you should put their name and address, just to be clear. All the information you can.
My daughter lived another second.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, next slide. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Does your house belong to the trust or to you personally? Does the home belong to the trust?
And that all the other stuff, like bank accounts or brokerage accounts, it's in the trust. Do we still need to find these documents?
If you have a trust, you need to talk to the lawyer that wrote your trust and see what they recommend. Because I'm not sure how it works with a trust.
If the trust owns the property, then it's in the trust.
Actually, if the trust, thank you. If the trust owns the property, you don't have the legal right to do a transfer on death deed. And if you may, if you want to switch from a trust to a transfer on death deed, you need to talk to your lawyer to have that undone. But yeah, for anyone who has a trust, the trust legally owns the property. You cannot legally transfer it. You personally cannot transfer it. Yes.
My question is, I was under the impression, in order to avoid probate court, you have to have a trust. And all the assets will go to the trust.
Nope. No.
The trust will distribute the trust. So in other words, we have this debt on deed form fill out. We don't need a trust. We don't. Okay, so it will automatically, we do not need to go through the probate court to distribute assets. Is that correct?
The transfer on death deed will handle all of the real estate you own.
Only real estate.
Only real estate. But what you can do, if you know by probate codes, have a transfer on death deed for your house, have a transfer on death deed for any vehicles you own, and call your bank, all of your financial accounts, your financial advisor, and have payable on death beneficiaries for those accounts. So we have to have each form for each property that we need to transfer, including real estate and non-real estate assets.
Correct. That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
I had two properties. I have one property in Galveston that was willed to me, like since 2002. And it's completely paid for with my home. But I also have a property here in Houston with my husband that we actually purchased together. I need two different transfer of deeds for those properties.
Yes, ma'am.
And how do I actually do a transfer deed to separate the homeowners? I mean, the one that was inherited, it's mine, but I have to will it down to somebody to pay.
You would do a transfer of deed deed for that property in Galveston. That would be recorded in the Galveston County Clerk's office. You would do a separate transfer of deed for your property here in Houston, and that would be recorded at the Harris County Clerk's office.
Okay.
The transfer on deed deed needs to be filed in the county wherever the property is. So if you live here and it's in Galveston County, it needs to be filed in Galveston County for that property. If you live down in Corpus or have property in Corpus, you need to go to the county down there and file it there. So know that the information that she's providing is for the entire state of Texas. It's not just Harris County. She's given Harris County clerk's office as the example, but it's wherever the property is located.
And also for the notary, for pre-notarizing this Saturday, as long as you live here in Houston, wherever you live, we will notarize the transfer on that deed for as many as you have and wherever. But as long as you live here in Harris County, in the city of Houston, yes, ma'am.
Do we literally have to go to the clerk, the county clerk's office, and file it online?
You can file it online.
You can file it online, but you have to go through a third-party service. I don't know if it's cost effective for individuals, but if you go to the Harris County Clerk's website, look in the real property section, they will have a list of a couple of services that will allow you to file deeds online, and you'll have to contact that whoever runs that website.
It's really not that difficult, and it just run in and out. That's it.
It's really quite easy.
Thank you.
Mr. Lloyd, could you translate that part that we just?
I think Richard is probably going to do that.
Okay, would you translate that? What you just said?
Okay. Cái di sản mà ông cha mình để lại cho các con các cháu á, đừng để làm mất đi. Cái chương trình thứ bảy này họ sẽ tới, họ sẽ giúp đỡ cho mọi người điền cái đơn ra, rồi xong rồi thi thực chữ ký và mang tới văn phòng thư ký của quận để mà mình không mất cái căn nhà đó được đi để lại cho con cháu. Việc nó làm rất dễ, điền đơn ra thi thực chữ ký và chạy xuống dưới phố nộp đơn là cái mình bảo vệ cái di sản mình để lại cho con cháu và thế hệ sau này. Thế thôi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How about in Chinese?
In Chinese, could you translate it?
I'd like to make sure that I understand. When you said what we built on the floor, okay, it's good. Okay, and if we have, or if they have properties in different countries, then we need to file in each county in order to be valid.
Exactly.
Right.
Counties.
Okay.
In Texas.
What if
In Texas, because this is only good in Texas. This law is only good in Texas. It's not, you would have to go and get an attorney or an organization that knows the law in that state. But we're talking about only, this is only good in Texas.
Okay, so suppose someone has 3 pieces of properties in 3 different countries. So he or she would have to use 3 forms, one for each property. Okay, what if someone who owns properties in other states?
We cannot do that in other states because there are different rules and laws for other states. A transfer on debt deed is only good for the state of Texas. You would have to talk to an attorney in another state or another organization that does the same thing we do is educate on legacy building and find out what you do there.
The person has multiple kids.
Yes.
And they want to transfer a deed. One you can do that houses that work the other kids.
Yes.
Find out that you don't care for them as much profit.
Say that.
I only have one child. But I know people that have multiple kids. They have one. That's what you are.
That's what we're trying to educate the community. You know, a lot of parents, I have 3 children and I am going to leave. I've already done a transfer on death deed and I left for each child equally, my 50% of the house. But there are some people that say, hey, I have 3 children, but 2 of them, but I trust one to take care of everything for the property, for the family. Then you would pick one. You know your children, and that's something that you need to decide what you're going to do. And one of the things that I learned that Lisa educated me on is here in the state of Texas, as long as you're both on title, my husband and I are both on title. I own 50% of the house. He owns 50% of the house. My 50%, I can decide whatever I want to do with my 50%. He can do the same thing. So my 50%, I decided to make sure to leave it to my 3 children. And my reasoning, and this is a selfish reasoning, because in case I pass before my husband does, and he gets remarried, I want children to get my part. So they would have to go through my children to get whatever they want to do with the house. But that's selfish, Myra.
It says earlier that the TOBV trumps a will.
Correct.
So, meaning that you have 3 children, the children can contest a will, but can they contest the TOBV?
No.
There we go.
Great question. Thank you.
Repeat that, Lisa.
This is a great question. Now, I have in an earlier slide, I said that the transfer on death deed trumps a will. Children can contest a will. They can't contest this deed.
No one.
Brilliant.
Not a single person can contest a transfer on that. Hold on, let her. Let her translate the Chinese.
Transfer of death deed 在我们这个 package 里面有一份，他这个礼拜6会有人帮我们公证，因为要公证 notarize 以后才有效 ，OK？ 然后这一个文件呢，它比遗嘱还有效，因为遗嘱如果是人走了以后，你财产留给人家，在遗嘱里面有3个人留的，可是你在 transfer of death deed 上是留了1个人的话，遗嘱可以去法院里面告，就说明明写的3个人。怎么回事？怎么我们没有拿到？我们没有拿到。可是你只要有 transfer of death deed， 你没有办法去法院里面告说我没有拿到。所以这一个 transfer of death deed trump will。然后另外一点，我以前也不太了解，就是说你如果有一个信托，有一个 trust 的话。你就不能用这个 transfer of death deed， 因为平常一般人不会用信托，因为信托你要去找律师跟你签做，对收费都蛮大。你如果是只有比较简单的，就是有一点遗产的话，你用 transfer of death deed 就可以做。另外就是你如果有3个不动产的话，你就要用3份表格填上去 ，OK？ 如果你外州的 out of state 的遗产，那个不动产不能用这个 form， 因为我们州跟别州不一样。所以呢
，And if you want to stay afterwards, we will translate more thorough after we do the virtual. Okay?
Let me say that real quick. Cái chương trình sang tên chủ quyền bất động sản này nó không có thay thế cái di chúc, nhưng mà nó có thể bảo vệ cái căn nhà hoặc cái đất đai đó cho con cháu. Bởi vì khi mà mình để cái miếng đất cái nhà đó cho một người nào, một người con, một người cháu nào đó, thì người đó chỉ có quyền giữ cái miếng đất đó. Con cháu ở ngoài ở đâu không thể nào mà tới mà tranh giành được.
Okay, next slide, please. I'm so glad that everybody's interested and has a lot of great questions.
And let me ask that people try to hold the questions, especially over here. The people that are online can hear our conversation.
Right.
So
let's wait.
So yeah, let's wait for the questions afterwards.
Go ahead.
Okay.
So this you see every year when you get your tax bill. It'll have the lot, the block, and the subdivision name. That is not the full legal description. So when you're filling out your transfer on death deed, do not use this for your description. Next slide. This is the full legal description. So it has the lot, the block, the subdivision name, but it states, according to the map or plot thereof, recorded in volume 5, page 69 of the deed records, of Harris County, Texas. And then you put commonly known as and whatever the street address, the mailing address of the property. So how do you know that you have the full legal description? Is it has the volume, the page number, and the deed records of Harris County or Galveston County, whatever county where your property is located. So there's one last step. After you record the transfer on death deed, you're good to go. You have transferred. It will be transferred to whoever you want when you pass away. Once someone passes away, and any of us inherit property through a transfer on death deed, we need to create an affidavit of death. And what that is once someone passes away, the beneficiary prepares an affidavit of death. They file that in the real property records at the same place where you file the transfer on death deed. This way they will have legal ownership of that. So just because you inherit property in a will, just because you inherit property through a transfer on death deed, it doesn't automatically pass to you. You have to go through the legal process to transfer it into your name. Now, for both the transfer on death deed and the affidavit of death, there is a wonderful website. I do not know if it is translated in Chinese, but it is translated in Vietnamese and Spanish. It's called TexasLawHelp.org. And they actually have a toolkit that will walk you through the process of filling out the deed.
And I'll be sending out a link of this recording that's got all these slides in it. So I see y'all are taking pictures of it and everything. So it'll have all of this information in it also, along with the links for Texas Law Help, so that you guys can go right to the website.
In fact, even if you're participating in the event on Saturday to have a transfer on death deed notarized, you can still use the toolkit at Texas Law Help to walk you through the steps. I think that's good. Yeah. That's the end of my presentation. I wanted to, if you missed me, I could bring up the deed. I want to go through the deed with you quickly, just so you have an idea. And you'll get an email with all of this information, including my contact information.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I look up my legal description on the properties search. It has a lot of abbreviation. So do I write exactly like the abbreviation? Or
yes, that's a great question.
Like LT 57, which is Lot 57, I write LT 57.
Yeah, you want to write on your transfer on death deed exactly the way the legal description is that you find on your deed or online. So if it has it as an abbreviation, leave it as an abbreviation.
Could you explain that again? Make sure they understand.
Okay, and then I've got you. So it is critical. Thank you so much for asking it. It is critical that your legal description matches exactly what the legal description is online or on your deed. So if there's abbreviations, have the abbreviations. If they have the number written out, like say they have 27 written out in letters, you want to write it out just like that. And what was your question, ma'am?
If you could go back up to the affidavit of death, that's the property law of faith, where they stone dies, go as an affidavit of death.
Not a
incorporate their half file.
Yes, ma'am. Excellent question. Even though Texas is a common law state, you still need to go through the legal process to transfer your spouse's 50% into your name. I have a client who came to me now that it was this exact situation. She qualified for the City of Houston Home Repair Code. Her spouse passed away a few years ago. She had to come to our office and have us do the process to clear her spouse's half to her so that she owns 100% of the property.
That is a big problem.
What if somebody did a warranty deed to their child and they want that warranty deed, they want that property back?
They're gonna have to get the child to transfer it back.
Okay. So if you
how you pay tax in a couple of months like that, how you to pay tax? I get it.
You still have to pay your taxes with the transfer on death deed.
Your neighbor can pay your tax. It really doesn't matter. The county just wants their money. They don't really care who pays the tax.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
as long as
Because I just transfer, now I transfer back to me. That means that I file like
Your exemption.
old people pay tax.
The homestead exemption, the over 65.
That means between my 3 children and me.
Mhm.
Now I switch back to me. How I go to pay tax, I don't know.
You need to switch back to you so that you get all of your exemptions because your children wouldn't qualify for the same exemptions that you qualify for.
Okay.
So you could be saving a lot of money on your property taxes.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, ma'am?
Is the legal description shown on the tax bill?
That is not the correct legal description. You have to get the one that says as recorded in the deed records of Harris County, Texas.
Go to Harris County Property Search, and then type your address with your name. It will have the legal description.
Yes, ma'am.
It's that.
It's more complicated than that.
That's the one that's on the tax.
There's a
bill.
lot, I mean,
That's not.
taxes is not sufficient.
That's
You have to meet, there's a whole lot of legal elements they have to meet.
Oh, okay.
to the deed and see what's on there. Yeah.
So this next, okay, so I want to make sure I understand it. So if you're married and you go to Texas, if you were phenomenal, they, the spouse expires first. The other remaining doesn't automatically.
No, you have to go through a legal process. There's you need to call a lawyer because there's a lot of different ways to do it. Some are a lot less expensive than others. But yeah, it doesn't automatically transfer to you.
Okay, but if two exes live together and the deed is in both names, then 50% one and 50% the other, correct?
Correct. If you're not married anymore, if you're divorced, it's no longer a community property. Yes, ma'am?
Okay, what if you have the child? Okay, you have a child. And you have the child, put the child's name on your property. The child owns your property. You wanted him to be like ownership of your property. And you want them to switch it back to your name. But you have this other kid over here that is living in the house when you pass. Can that kid take that house, or even though you can switch it back to the name, even though it's in your name, but you pay?
And no. And when you don't have a will or a transfer on death deed, the property is shared equally among all your kids.
Oh, okay.
But this is why we said, please have a will, please have a transfer on death deed so that you can name the person who wants to inherit your house. Yes, ma'am?
If both my husband and I are joint owners of the house, we each file on death deed.
You can file
Naming each other as the beneficiary.
you name each other. You can, okay, so if you both own the house, you file one transfer on death deed. You name each other as the primary beneficiary, and then you would name a secondary beneficiary who would inherit the house after both of you pass away.
What is the difference between, hold on for just a second, we have donuts and we have kolaches. This is also very informal, so we want to make sure that you feel comfortable enough. We're getting the cups and stuff, so come on and get some donuts and some kolaches while you're asking the questions. Go ahead.
We're still live.
Between a transfer on debt
We're still live.
and a late
They're more or less the same thing.
We're still live, so if they don't want to be on camera, they need to know when they're up here. Okay.
It can only be a single person transferring, whereas on the transfer on debt deed, it can be multiple people you transfer into. Is that correct or incorrect?
I don't prepare lady deeds. I prefer the transfer on debt deed. I believe you, even with a lady bird deed, you could transfer it to more than one person.
And the other subsequent question to that is, what happens to taxes on a transfer of debt deed? Whoever you transfer, are they responsible for any debts that are owed because they got the property?
They are responsible. Okay, if you transfer your property through a transfer on death deed, is the person who inherits it responsible for the debt? If the debts are attached to the property, absolutely. If you have a loan, if you have a reverse mortgage, those attached with the house, whoever inherits the house has to pay them.
Okay.
You still want to go through
Yes, ma'am?
I don't need the trust.
Correct. The transfer on death avoids probate for your house, for your bank accounts, for your investment accounts. You need to talk to your financial advisor and have beneficiaries on those. Yeah. So again, transfer on death deed, you do not need a trust if you leave your house to somebody through a transfer on death deed. Transfer on death deeds are only for real estate. They're not for anything else. For your bank accounts, for your retirement accounts, for your investment accounts, you need to talk to your financial advisor and make sure that you have beneficiaries for all of those.
Okay, on this form, it said property owner. I will write my name, and then second owner will be my wife's name, right?
If you own the house with your wife, yes. Okay. So I want to go through this form while I've got you all here. This is the first page of the transfer on death deed, and you have one in your packet. So if you own your home with your spouse, both of you would put your names and addresses. If you own the house only by yourself, you would write an NA where it says second property owner's name. So if you want to scroll down. This next section is where you put the legal description. That's where you want to go to Harris County Property Search online and find the legal description of your house. After that, you put the mailing address of the property.
Okay.
That's not correct. It's not the full legal description.
Okay, let's remember we're online.
Okay, remember that we're online. Why don't you wait? Okay, so the next page, page 2, is if you own the house with your spouse and you want the surviving spouse to get the house.
Okay, so how would I write my wife's name? Did you got an alternate beneficiary and second alternate?
Okay. You would have your wife's name on the first page. On the first page, on this first page, it has your name and your wife's name.
Okay.
So on this one, it says, I want the surviving spouse to get the house. You don't need to write their name again. They already have the 2 property owners' names.
Okay, so right here, I can put my children's name.
Correct. This is a great example. So he wants the surviving spouse to get the house and then his children. So in these 2 spots, he would write his children's name.
Okay, but I want only my wife to have the house. If she passed away, then
check that box.
Children will.
Do you check the box where it says both surviving spouses? The box that's on the top?
Oh, check the box. Check
check that box right next to the A.
Check the box and then write my children's name.
And the children's names go there.
Then I can write a percentage.
Actually, the way this form is, you leave it to 1 child, and then you can list the second child as an alternate. This form is not designed to leave the properties to lots of people.
Okay, so if I have 2 children, the alternate beneficiary will get it. but not the second alternate.
Yes, correct. And that's the way the form is designed. The form is designed that way because when people leave their property to say they have 5 children, they leave the property to 5 children. One of the 5 children, one child can decide that they want to sell the house and they can get a court order to force the sale.
And that is when it will, correct?
That's with either.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Now this transfer can be canceled.
Correct. Thank you.
So let's say you leave the house to Tim and Tim decided to act up and not doing his part. You can cancel it and leave it to Tom.
You can cancel this as many times as you want.
You gotta do it yourself.
Leverage.
Live yourself.
Do you want to show the next page?
We would do a cancellation of transfer on that deed. Yeah.
It's called a revocation. Transfer on death deed. Okay, this is page 3. This is if only one spouse owns the property. So there are times when someone gets married to someone who already has a house, and that house is their separate property. If you own the house and you want you own 100% of the house, and you want your spouse to inherit the house when you die, you would check the box next to the B that says only one spouse owns the property, and then you would name your spouse and your spouse's address, and your spouse would inherit the house after you die.
Oh, no, I have a question. For some property, especially when one spouse owns the property, okay, the one who owns the property dies first, before the death, okay, he or she wants to leave the property to the surviving spouse until surviving spouse passes away, then the property will go to the first kids. Is that workable?
It's workable. So that's a great example. So here, under 1, if you want the house, you own the house 100%. You want your spouse to inherit it 100%. You list your spouse there. And then if you scroll down just a tiny bit, then you can have it left to your kids. Okay. So this is after my spouse dies, I want this person to inherit it.
Okay, so the surviving spouse can live there until he or she passes away, and the property will go to the first spouse who passed away. You know, according to
their yeah.
No, I think you guys are talking about 2 different things. If you pass, you want your surviving spouse to stay there, but then the house goes to the children. You're not transferring the property to him.
Exactly.
Once you transfer the property to him, it's his property. He can leave it to whoever it is he wants. So, but if you just want him to live there, then that's a different thing.
If you just want your spouse to live there,
right,
you don't need to do anything. Right. Under Texas law, if a house is separate property, the surviving spouse has the right to live in that property for the rest of their life. Once that person passes away, it would go however you named it in a deed or in a will.
Now, mind you, if your surviving spouse remarries, he can move that woman into the house. He has the right to live there for the rest of his life.
Okay, once he passes away.
And once he passes away, she gotta go. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Someone just asked if a transfer on death deed trumps a deathbed will. The answer is yes. Your transfer on death deed controls. This is also true of bank accounts, and this can be a big problem. There are people that will have a retirement account from a job they had 30 years ago. And at that point, they had named their spouse to inherit the retirement account. In the meantime, they get divorced. That ex still has a right to that retirement account because they didn't change the beneficiary. So if you have accounts with a named beneficiary, you want to check that and make sure it's exactly who you want.
So in other words, whenever y'all have any kind of life changes, new kids, grandkids, divorced, married, or whatever, update all your documents as you go along.
I recommend every 5 to 10 years, take a look at all of your deeds, at your will, at your beneficiaries. Make sure that you have the right names. Make sure it's their current name. People get married, people get divorced. You want to make sure it's the correct names on there.
You put on full done, you don't have nothing to do for that. You don't have nothing to do to take care of them. Put it to your full done.
Say that it's part of it.
You put on full done.
You go down to the court?
Yes.
They said no, it's always county clerk's office. You go.
Oh, yeah, you don't have nothing to do with that. Okay.
It's a lot of.
You can skip that. Yeah. And this right here is your legal description. This is what you want on the deed.
Miss Lisa. Miss Lisa, are you still going to continue to go over? Yeah.
Yeah, let's go ahead and figure
There's one last section.
Hold on, everyone. Hold on. Go ahead, Miss Lisa.
Okay. If you are not married, you would use section C of the transfer on death deed.
If you're not married?
Yeah, if you're married, and you don't want, actually, if you're, okay, section C, if you are married and you don't want your share to go to the surviving spouse, like you want it to go directly to your children, you would use number C.
But if you're single, what you do?
If you're single, you also use this section.
Yes, then and you do that.
Correct.
And please.
Next slide.
She's translating.
But we'll do the transition because we got people on.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, this is just who you want. If your spouse or whoever you name in section C survives you, you say that this is if your primary beneficiary also passes away. A is if you want it to go to the primaries heirs, whether it's their children, their spouse, or if you want, you name the property, I'll go into one child. And if that child passes away and you think, well, it can just go to all my children, you would check B. It would not go to the survivor. Okay, here, let's just make it easy. So say you have 2 children. You leave the house to your first child passes away before you. If you click A, that house would go to the first child's children, your grandchildren. If you check B, the house would go to the children who survived you. Section B is if, and it's similar. So if all the beneficiaries passed away before you, if you check A, it will go to your grandchildren. It will go to those children's children. If you check B, so say Myra has 3 children. She left the house to all 3 children. If she selected B, if one of the 3 children pass away, the house will go to the 2 living children.
I didn't know that.
You might need to redo it.
No, mine was done correctly, but I was just, yeah.
I didn't know what I had. Invite as the children and just automatically give it to a grandchild instead of 2 children.
Yes, but you have to be over 18 to inherit property. I had a gentleman come to my office for estate planning, and he wanted to leave the house to his grandchildren. And first of all, so I spoke with him about it, and what he really wanted was for the house to be sold and the money to be given to the grandchildren. Now, none of the grandchildren were over the age of 18. So I told him, he had a daughter that he knew he could trust. I told him to leave the house to his daughter in the transfer on death deed, and the daughter will sell the house and give the money to the grandchildren. Now, once those grandchildren are 18, he can come back to my office and we can update a deed, giving it directly to the grandchildren.
On this page, you can only select one, either A or B or C. You can
Correct.
Okay, one,
It's just A or B.
and then you have to do another people.
A is if you want to go to the children of the primary beneficiary. B is if you want to go to all of your children.
The other person that you named is the one.
I think we're done. And once again, this has to be notarized, and it is not good unless you file it at the county clerk's office.
Now, you can also fill out a transfer on death deed for your vehicle with the Texas Department of Transportation, and when for your bank accounts.
The bank accounts, it goes through your bank. So if you have time this afternoon, call up your bankers, make sure that you have payable on death beneficiaries. Make sure their names are correct.
Really quick process. 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's a 5-minute
It's a 5-minute process for the banks. You just walk in and say you want a payable on death, and they'll do it right there on the computer.
Correct. Now, one thing that I warn you with the payable on death with the bank, make sure it is their legal name on their driver's license. I had some people who came to me, their friend passed away. He had a savings account with $1,000 in it. He had left it to his 3 friends. One of the friends, her name was Lisa, but everybody called her Lee. So he listed his payable on death as Lee. The bank couldn't accept that because that's not her legal name. We had to go through probate, and I hated this because they had to spend more money than they inherited to get it straightened out.
Now, one of the things that you want to do this Saturday, it's called the Legacy Building Now and Beyond. The month of service partners are sponsors, as well as the City of Houston Department of Neighborhoods. Thank you. I forget that we're online also. So we're this Saturday. I will stay here until we get all of you scheduled for a free notary to make sure you bring your transfer on death deed filled out, but just do not sign it because you'll have to be in front of a notary to sign it. Once it's signed, next week, you go to a Harris County Clerk's office and make sure you file the transfer on death deed. Do not wait to file it with Harris County Clerk's office. And thank you, Veronica. She got us some cups for coffee. So I will be here. We want to schedule. I'll be here this evening, today. It'll be from 9 to 12 o'clock, but we want to schedule each one of you. Okay. So then when the walk-ins come in, you will be first. So I'll stay here until we finish making sure we've got each one of you scheduled for a free notary for the Saturday. And the great thing is we're also having a Legacy Building Now and Beyond resource fair. And yeah, you'll be here, right? Yeah. Is this one? No, we will be at the seniors room. And it will be, we'll have NRCDC, the City of Houston Department of Neighborhood, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, Lone Star Legal Aid, and other organizations that will be here to assess you if you feel like, hey, okay, I did the transfer on death deed, but I also want to go through the process of will. So we will also have Houston Volunteer Lawyers, Lone Star Legal Aid to assess you, do a much more thorough intake for you. So don't leave until we finish the translation, and do not leave until you are scheduled for this Saturday for a free notary, okay?
And one more thing about the transfer on death deed, you will get a copy emailed to you. That form is a fill in the blank form, so you can type it on your computer, on your tablet, on your phone. I recommend having everything typed so that it's easy for them, for the clerk, and for any people in the future to read.
Oh, no, we're not going to transfer it. Hold on. So, are there any specific questions right now for anyone that? Yes, ma'am.
It's about vehicle transfer.
Does that have to be filed with the post office?
No.
Okay,
Texas Department of Transportation.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions before? Yes, ma'am. Yes, it'll be in the senior center. And so we will meet you there Saturday, but don't leave until I schedule you for a free notice. Because we're scheduling, we have 7 notaries that will be here, and we'll be scheduling you from 9 to every 30 minutes. I'll be scheduling you.
And I'll be here too, and I'll have my notary stuff. So you got an 8.
We got 8 notaries. That's amazing. Yes, ma'am.
Well, you've already called the scheduler, you don't have to worry about it.
No, ma'am. If I've already scheduled you and called you and you're scheduled already, don't worry about it.
Scheduled at 9 o'clock and I don't show up to 11.
It's fine. But we will not accept anyone at 12 o'clock. The last person that we will notarize will be at 11:30. But you don't want to, you want to be scheduled because you don't want to be a walk-in. Last time at the Acres Home, there was a long line for people that walked in. So anyone that was already scheduled, we already let you walk in and you just signed in and we send you to the notary that you're already scheduled for.
Okay, sign in sheet that we did, can you use that as a schedule?
That's what I'm using.
Okay, so we don't need to
Yes.
schedule, yeah.
Yes.
Can we also let them reintroduce themselves since we didn't get them on live? or
That
on
would
the
be
recording?
awesome. Right now, before we go into translation, we're gonna let all our different department representatives introduce themselves again. Mr. Darius, would you introduce yourself? And you have to come right in.
Hello, everyone online. I'm Darius Washington, and I work in the mayor's office in the communities. We help with outreach for the communities. Very low voice. Backstory on that: when I was a kid, I was always so much bigger than everyone. So I didn't want people to be scared, so I started talking lower, and that's why. So, like I said, I work in complete communities, and we work with outreach with Department of Neighborhoods to provide these legacy events. And we successfully had one in Acres Home about a month ago, and we're gonna have one this Saturday where we're going to do the transfer on death with
And would you introduce yourself?
Again, my name is Richard Winnow. I am with Solid Waste Management Department. I'm here to lend a hand to Ms. Hippolyte. And remember, today's only introduction. Saturday is the day that we do this, so please come Saturday.
And introduce your.
My name is Elizabeth. I'm with the Solid Waste Department, and I'm here with Richard Winnow.
And we have a couple more.
My name is Morgan Gilliland, and I work with HPD's Environmental Investigations Unit. I'm their community liaison who goes out with educational seminars about illegal dumping and how we can help each other. There's Monkey Ticks all face magazine unit, and earlier we talked about all the properties, and yes, there are some over the heritage. The heritage exemption shift. If somebody can apply to it, that will be great. And just nice to engage with the community again. Thank you so much.
And one of the things, thank you for bringing this up.
Yeah.
Homestead exemptions. Did you know that, let's say about 40%, 50, 60% of all seniors over 65, it might be higher, only about 70% of all Harris County seniors that qualify for an over 65 extension have applied, only 70%. So if you have a family member that is over 65 or older, and can qualify for an over 65 homestead exemption, please make sure they do. And another thing that we've realized is a lot of the seniors don't protest the appraisal of their homes because a lot of seniors feel like, I'm not paying you taxes. Some seniors don't pay you taxes. They say, well, we're not worried about that. The problem is, if you're leaving your legacy to your children or your heirs, if you don't protest the appraisal of your homes, the appraisal will keep going up. And so right now you're not paying taxes because you got over 65 exemption, you've got homestead exemption. But once you pass, those are gone. So when your heirs get your property, if you are not protesting the appraisal of your home, can you only imagine how much taxes your heirs will have to pay if you don't protest? So you have to stay on your family, your friends, cousins, talk to them. It's not difficult to protest the appraisal of your home. Now they've started with 10% that your taxes will only pay 10% of what you was appraised last year. And that's the assessment value. And there's also the appraisal value. So get educated on a new process called assessment value and appraisal value. Assessment value is when they can charge only 10% of last year's appraisal. That's the assessment value. The appraisal value is much higher. So make sure you keep protesting, educate your family, educate your friends, protect your generational wealth. Because here, and that's why we are having the transfer on death deed. Because a lot of the programs are for income qualification. But one of the things that Mayor Turner said, he wants everyone in Houston to be able to protect their generational wealth. So that's when he came up with the Complete Communities Legacy Building Now and Beyond program. And we partnered with the African American Mayors Association to be able to say, we don't care how much you make. We want to educate you on how to protect your generational wealth during the resource fair. And we want to offer you a free notary to be able to notarize, assist you in notarizing your transfer on death deed. That's what Legacy Building Now and Beyond is all about. Making sure that we don't care who you are, how much money you make, or how much money you don't make, but that you do protect your generational wealth and you get educated on what's the process of legacy building. That's stocks, insurance, life insurance, buying your first home, being a first-time home buyer. You know, a lot of our children are could be first-time home buyers. And they don't realize that, hey, if I took a first-time home buyer class, you could get maybe up to $35,000 assistance on closing for your first home. And that's part of legacy building. So one of the things that the Monthly Service Partners and the Legacy Building Now and Beyond program, we want to make sure that you're educated on being a first-time home buyer. If you have children, let's talk about being a first-time home buyer. They will teach you how to clean your credit. You say, oh, I have bad credit. No, we have in our CDC that they have a first-time home buyer class. And different organizations offer first-time home buyer class. If you have children, even if you're older and you've never been a home, never owned a home. Nia, let me ask you something. How old is it too old to buy a home?
It's never too old. You're never, never, never too late to become a homeowner.
Exactly. Then you can still take the first-time home buyer. We have someone that was what, 60-something, 70-something?
Almost in their 80s.
Almost, and she took her first-time home buyer class. They helped her with their closing costs up to $35,000. She moved into her house. She filed a transfer on death deed. So it's not only for the younger generation. Legacy building starts young, but also it starts when you're older. Because a lot of times we go through a lot of risks and rust through our life, and then when you're older, you go, oh, wait a minute, I finally can do this. I can handle this. Yes.
You have to think about the fact that also, you know, a lot of things happen at any time. Hurricane Harvey, the winter storm Uri, all these folks are now displaced or cannot qualify for assistance because the homes that they're living in are in their parents' and grandparents' name. So what happens to those properties is that they get left. They become dilapidated. You get investors that come into a community and now starting to buy and build up and make it unaffordable. It increases your property taxes. When your property taxes go up and you're on a limited income, you can no longer afford to stay there because of everything else that's going on around you, because somebody didn't get their property transferred to the way that it was supposed to be done. So it all has a rippling effect. One thing always impacts another. So you want to make sure that these kinds of things are in place so that, you know, if nothing else, that your family's not going through the grieving process and still trying to handle business that could have been taken care of long before you actually even passed. Because there's nothing worse, and please believe, from personal experience, having to go through a grieving process, trying to handle somebody else's affairs, finances, getting things covered. You have to wait for probate process. You're coming out of pocket, spending money and having to get all of this stuff taken care of so that you don't lose out on those assets that could have easily just been done with a transfer on death deed, a life insurance policy, a beneficiary on your bank accounts. All of that could have already been done. But, you know, you'll end up wasting a lot of time and money spending out all those assets that you saved just to end up in probate court or to be lost. And that's not what you want to do. So do what you need to do well in advance, you know, of anything actually happening like that.
You spoke about taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's say for instance, have a will in place with a transfer, a deed in place, but they're older, so they're not paying taxes. Are those taxes accumulating interest every year?
It depends. Is it an exemption or a deferral? So there's a difference between an over 65 exemption. Exemptions you don't pay back. That means that we're excluding you from those tax tax liability. So say for instance, you got a house that's worth $100,000 or $200,000. You've got an over 65 exemption. Your house is technically valued at $180,000. Well, if you're exempt, if your house is worth $200, but your house is valued at $180, and you know you've got this 65 exemption, that could potentially eliminate saying that you no longer owe taxes because of your exemption and because of the value of the house. Now,
at least for that year.
At least for that year. So if you then, if you have a deferral, and you choose to say, hey, I'm on a fixed income, I can't afford my property taxes this year, I want to apply for a deferral. You apply for that deferral, that means you don't have to pay that tax bill for that year without additional penalties and interest accumulating until you pass. 180 days after you pass away, any years of tax deferrals that you had are now due, and your heirs have to now pay that.
Now,
if they intend to keep the property.
Now, one of the things when you're filing your over 65 exemption, you're going to go to Harris County and they're going to say you have two options. You can defer your taxes or you can take your exemption. And you go, well, you know, in 9 times out of 10, a senior's going to say, well, I don't know the difference. What's the difference? And you're saying, wait a minute, an over 65 exemption is when you're taking that homestead exemption and that over 65 extension, and they're reducing your taxes from what you owe. Now, a deferment, they're going to tell you, well, hey, Lloyd, you don't have to pay taxes anymore. Isn't that great? And you go, wow, as a senior, I'm thinking, wow, I don't have to pay taxes anymore. So guess what I'm going to do? I may not know the process that after I pass, my heirs will have to pay my taxes, and I may live 10, 20 years. So can you imagine leaving your estate and your heirs with that tax burden? So make sure when you're applying for an over 65 extension or deferment, you're educated in the process. Don't just listen and say, oh, wow, this is great, this is fantastic. Get educated and protect your generational wealth. Yes,
and communicate with your heirs.
Yes.
If you have a deferral, let somebody know. Let them know. If the intention is to keep that house, to keep it in the family, somebody needs to start contributing towards some taxes just to make the payments anyway, even though there's no penalty, there's no requirement that you have to pay. It's just a cushion, just a safety net, just in case you can't pay. I'm not going to get charged all these additional penalties and interest being accrued for not paying the tax.
Yes, ma'am. We will have, we are going to have a veterans, a legacy building. That's going to be on November 18th. In November, we will be doing the veterans assistance and information, and we're working on a special training concerning veterans. Oh, okay. Well, we're going to finish first, and then let them. Okay. So thank you so much. So we want to thank you, each one of y'all. Do not leave until you see me and schedule your appointment. But right now, we're going to go ahead and close the coffee and conversation. Thank you, everyone, for attending coffee and conversation. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, because whatever you've learned today, you're able to pass it on to your next generation. And Nia and Miss Lisa, thank you again, as always, for always. Those who are interested for the translation, please stay here, because they will have a Vietnamese and a Chinese translation. We have coffee, we have donuts, and I will schedule you for this Saturday's appointment. So don't leave until you schedule.
It's been too long.